Welcome all to the District of Sechelt Cow meeting of October 23rd, 2024 at 3 p.m. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. The District of Sechelt is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose presence continues to enrich this community. My family, for one, appreciates their hospitality. Thank you. I'll just call this meeting now to order, and any declaration of conflict of the council members present and online. Not seeing any, then let's move on to the adoption of the agenda committee as presented. Councilor Rowe, thank you. Anderson is seconding. All in favor of adoption of the agenda? Okay, great. That's obviously a sign that Shepherd and Bell can hear me. Great. Good to see you. Let's then go into the first delegation, which is Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society and Regional Housing Coordinator Kelly Foley and with Kim, obviously with Darwin. And you presented this at the Regional District a number of weeks ago, basically a similar and or same report. Oh, okay. Great. So I talked about it with the council, told them you were there, and hoped that you'd come, and here you are, so welcome. And you know to proceed forward to the two chairs and turn on your mics. Thanks for all the work the two of you do and others.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having us. Yes, we presented to the Sunshine Coast Regional District a few weeks ago, and yesterday we presented to the town of Gibsons as well, so we're hitting all the local governments. You all had an opportunity, I presume, to see the slides, so I'm not going to go through those bit by bit because it will probably take up too much time. The long and the short of it is you can see all of the work that Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society has been doing with our projects. I added up, if we get all of the projects done to which are in our pipeline now, including the project, hopefully with the District of Sechelt's child care and workforce housing project that Julie's been amazing at keeping going, your staff member, as well as perhaps doing a rental protection purchase of a building in Sechelt that we just toured last Friday. We will have 124 units that Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society will have created of rental housing for the Sunshine Coast. And that is all being done. All the projects have been done basically off the side of volunteers' desks. Then you see all the work that Kelly Foley has done as well. So Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society is basically overseeing what Kelly is doing, through the housing action team and whatnot. We would like to do more. We know that the municipalities are all tasking developers, to which we have some behind us, to really have affordable home, affordable components in all of their developments. We would like to help them, but we cannot do that under our current structure with volunteers doing all of these things off the side of their desk. So there's a lot of missed opportunities that are happening on the Sunshine Coast as a result. We would like to grow as an organization and to transition essentially from a working board to a governance board. And this is where it's sort of an ask. It's help us help you. And essentially our ask is that we're looking for funding in order to hire an executive director and a part-time administrator to set all of the pieces in place that are required for us to transition from a working board to a governance board so that we can take on these other roles that are going to help the entire community have more affordable housing.
And part of that piece that is really critical is to come up with the model to have long-term sustainable operational funding. And essentially, we're looking at having the capacity to do the work required to identify what that model would look like. I've done quite a bit of research around that and understand what those opportunities might look like. But essentially, we need a full-time person to be able to do the heavy lifting.
And happy to take any questions. I did want to highlight some of the work that Kelly's doing on the NORCs. And if you don't know what a NORC is, please ask us. We're really happy. Kelly's happy to tell you about it, as well as the, I keep calling it the retrofit. What is it called? The prototype, where we're taking single-family dwellings and turning them into multi-family units. So Kelly's got some really, really great work that can be replicated throughout the Sunshine Coast and in other communities. In fact, other communities are looking at, a lot of the work that Kelly is doing. And yeah, we've become kind of a model organization. People are watching what we're doing, and we really want to keep doing it and do more.
So, well, that was quick, but we have the information here. Although I'll have a couple of questions in terms of your ask, but Councillor Rowe, you look ready?
I have a general idea of what the NORCs, is it NORCs? Is that how you say it? Is, but if you could explain that a little bit. My second one is around the fund that allows you to purchase the apartment building, which I can't remember. And so so people are in this hypothetical apartment building, people are already living. I would assume those people can get to continue to live there. And does the rental structure, is it restructured or what happens?
So it's called the Rental Protection Fund, and we were actually approved in 3 days from the time that we applied to be part of the fund. What happens after that is then we have to find a building or buildings, and then, make an offer and then, get the actual dollars. We're also provided funds to, I think it's 15,000 per door to bring the buildings up to snuff, because obviously they're not going to be brand new buildings. And the tenants do get to remain at their current rent rates, which is the whole purpose of that fund, is to protect people from, it's basically for buildings that are in jeopardy of being taken out of the rental pool. And the one that we've been looking at is pretty ideal, although this is probably public record. It's overpriced currently, and, we'll be doing some negotiating.
Okay, and maybe just touch on the NORCs.
I didn't make the word up. So a NORC is a naturally occurring retirement community. And there's an actual innovation center outside of Toronto that are really exploring this model. The idea is that you organize communities. So a community can be a building, community can be a neighborhood, where there's a sort of a higher density of older people, older seniors living in that community. And it allows us to be more efficient and more creative in connecting that community to supports and services. So we're starting the prototype now. We're testing it on a building in Sechelt, where we're going to work with the residents in the building. They lead the initiative, but there's a facilitator to support them to identify what are those programs and supports that are going to make them more successfully to age in their home. And then it's just connecting them to those organizations, either it's nonprofits or other support services, and coordinating those efforts. And then it builds and builds from there.
Was that at your seniors town hall, the seniors housing one? I wasn't at, but I heard a lot about a model that was talked about there. Was that one of the models? Because that sounds familiar to me. Yeah.
Yes.
I heard a lot of positive output from that seniors housing
Oh, good.
focus group, and that was one of the things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I see Adam has his hand up.
yeah. Oh, Councillor Shepherd, you're using a hand up. Okay. Go for it.
Thank you to Kim Darwin for recognizing me. I just had two questions. One, back to the rental protection fund. Who owns the building, and what happens if you estimate that there's $500,000 of work to be done, but that turns into $1 million. Who has to cover that overage?
We would own the building. So Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society would be the one that would be purchasing it. So that's an easy answer. There is very extensive inspections that happen with these. In fact, BC Housing has a list of inspectors that we have to use. So we're not going to be going in, we're going to be going in very, very cautiously. And the 15,000 per door is it's an additional pot of fund to basically bring the buildings, up to the standards that they require. And there are certain standards that are required. There is the separate pot of funds that is used to purchase. They do also like you to partner with other organizations. So there are other organizations on the Sunshine Coast that we may actually reach out to as well in order to do this particular purchase. And I'll just put it out there, if there's any other buildings that any of the councillors know about, we'd be happy to look at those as well.
Okay, thank you. And to the chair, I wonder if I could ask one follow-up question?
No way. Of
All right,
course.
thanks. Just in terms of the ask, in terms of hiring a governance board going to that model, what's the sort of funding that you're looking for? Thank you.
Thank you. I was hoping somebody would ask that question because I failed to mention it. A high quality executive director is, I can't imagine them being paid less than $100,000 a year. And then a part-time executive director, just rough numbers, say 150 for the total amount. And that would be, again, I didn't really think about saying this yesterday at the town of Gibsons or to the regional district, that would be shared amongst the three governing bodies essentially. Yeah. So if I know budget talks are happening, so that the reason why we're coming today at this period of time is so that can hopefully be incorporated into some budgets. I also I know that there is a pool of some money. I know money's not growing on trees these days, but I know the District of Sechelt does have some funds that you guys have really been working hard at gathering, something to the tune of, I think, $80,000. Is that correct?
Not.
Yeah.
Oh, in terms of, funds set aside from new developments.
So I'll let you guys go through your budget and figure out where you can hopefully pull some funds to help us grow as an organization and then help you.
Thank you.
Adam, that was my question, actually, Councillor Shepherd, how much money they needed. Any other questions? Mayor Henderson has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Can we first of all just follow up on the question about the individual housing, without giving away what the target you have at the moment? What should we be looking for in a structure that might become a NORC or a?
The NORC, you answered the NORC.
So there's all these acronyms, sorry. So the NORC is like an existing community. So it could be like the Watermarks, for example, that would be considered a NORC, and the work would be really facilitating, helping those folks to get organized and then connecting them. The other project that I'm working on is to develop a prototype for converting a single attached house into multi-units. So at least, 2 garden suites and potentially converting the house into 2 suites and testing it amongst a number of variables that are important goals, but are often competing goals. So looking at low carbon, accessibility or adaptability, affordability, and climate resiliency. And obviously, it's a compromise. We're not going to get, to the full max in terms of all of those areas, but it's understanding what the needs are in the community around adaptability, for example, and then developing a prototype that can be adapted and scaled. So potentially a homeowner could do this, a large employer could do it, or a nonprofit.
So you see it as a small NORC could be as few as two
That's not a
residents.
NORC, that's just a prototype for converting, how do we successfully convert our inventory? And also during that process, we would be looking at ownership structures. There's a lot of work in Vancouver around shared ownership structures. And so it's just really trying to figure out that puzzle is what it is. Yeah.
And John, in answer to your question regarding the rental protection fund, it's for multi-unit buildings essentially is what we're looking for. We know that we don't have a lot of those on the Sunshine Coast, but some of them that we do are aging as the owners are also, somewhat aging as well. So that's what we're looking for, multi-unit.
Okay,
buildings.
thanks. But I think you'd asked us to keep watch for buildings, so you're saying almost anything, if it could be potentially divided into as few as 2 units would work for the prototype.
Different programs.
I know they're different programs.
Different programs, and the rental protection fund is only for those buildings that might be in jeopardy of being taken out of the rental pool. So it's to protect rentals.
Thanks. Hey, Chair. So what role have you factored in for the building community, the whole industry that actually builds these things?
You talking about for the prototypes?
Yeah, well, for the whole thing, reading through the presentation, there's a whole lot of people that are contributing to the initiative so far, but I didn't see the words investor, builder, developer.
It's definitely, yeah, like the work I'm doing, I work with a lot of the local builders.
Good.
I consult with them often, and they've been very, very generous with their time.
Okay.
And for this project that I'm working on to get funding to do the feasibility study, a big part of that is including the building community.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Bell. Councillor Bell, I think your hand was up, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how it went up.
Oh,
But I
okay.
will say, but I'm just not feeling too good. So I'm probably pushing buttons that I shouldn't. But I want to say thank you to both Kelly and to Kim for their incredible work that they continue to do for this community.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Rowe?
Is the MRDT tax, is that still coming from the SRD to?
It's flowing through the SCRD to pay for Kelly's role, yes.
Okay, so this funding that you're requesting, just to be clear, is on top of that? Thank you.
I'll just say yes for the record.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none, I have a couple questions. One is the coordinator that you mentioned, how many year program is that you're looking at? It's 150? Is that-
Sorry, which program are you
Well,
referring
you were
to?
looking at the person, an organizer, the executive director, coordinator. It's $150,000 you identified as the cost of that, as from what I heard there?
The executive director position would be approximately 100,000,
100,000?
administrator about 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many year program would you expect that to be?
So for now, we're just asking for 1 year of funding in order to get that person to put all of the pieces in place. There's a probability that they may ask for ongoing funding, but they'll also be looking for other funding so that we, Kelly, you had a couple of other ways that we would get funding, like through different programs, also setting our rent so that a certain amount of money comes from the rent that goes to, our organization so that we can continue operations. So it wouldn't all come from local government, but I anticipate that executive director would be sitting in front of you within the year, asking you to put it into your 2026 budget, some amount of money.
So more money than, yeah.
Just to clarify, with other, because I did a bunch of research around this, and other nonprofit housing providers, I reached out to several of them in the Lower Mainland, and they just have economy of scale because they're looking at, thousands of units, and they're able to use the rent from those units to offset their administrative costs. So the long term is obviously probably that model. There's other models where organizations develop programs like community services, and there's an admin fee associated with those programs, and that admin fee is used to cover overhead costs. So it might be a hybrid of those two.
And I always want to say, because we're the Affordable Housing Society, that whenever we have anything that's added on, you know, to the rents, that means we have higher rents, which is kind of contradictory to what our goal is. So, but if we have to do that in order to, you know, thrive, then that will be part of our budget.
Yeah, I just wonder if, in fact, you have a plan in place and/or some buildings that you're about to work on purchase, et cetera, and the contract ends. Obviously, they'll be asking us for the 2026 and/or further because it's difficult to fit everything you want to do and all your plans and all the buildings you want to do in our fiscal year.
That's why you'll notice on the bottom of the screen there, one of the things that the executive director will be tasked to do is to basically create a 5-year real estate development plan that'll be public to everybody.
Counselor Shepherd.
I'm actually going to make a motion that we add a one item of this funding for consideration in the 2025 budget. That it be a portion of the $150,000 being asked for by the applicant.
Okay. Makes sense. Any seconder? Counselor Rowe, any discussion of that motion? Obviously, there's no formula in place. That's always what we look for in order to make sure. I think the District of Sechelt often steps up for almost everything. So I'm glad to see this motion. And any other thoughts, Council, before we vote on it? All in favor? Thank you. Thanks. There you go.
And we're happy to provide any other additional information that you need as you go through your budget talks. If you need any materials, we're happy to supply that.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's something that you probably talk to our finance people about to make sure they have anything. Need anything, Kim? I'm sure you know who to talk to anyway. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for coming and staying, I guess. Yeah. Next is the Sunshine Coast Chamber of Commerce. Gaetan. And Ed. Yeah, okay. Do you? Yeah.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to meet with council. We should honor the past and the serving members of the former chambers of commerce, as well as the fact that we're on traditional First Nations territory. Creating the Sunshine Coast Chamber of Commerce was long overdue, and we invite you to check out our new website on a URL that was purchased back in 2018. Here's our interpretation of what the business community needs from the local governments. Competent infrastructure, particularly planning, making sure that long-term plans are in place. Leaders who build facilities and infrastructure to meet the community's long-term needs and plans. We expect council to lobby for a better transportation system to support tourism. As a chamber, we support the Sunshine Coast Tourism Strategic Plan. We had a joint meeting with that organization recently. I want to applaud Sechelt for being among the first in the province to adapt the zoning bylaw to new provincial rules. That was done ahead of many other communities. Being customer-oriented in the public sector means being there and listening, offering options, making sure then that options are offered rather than saying no. New investment is really important for the business community, particularly at a time when metrics from the past don't work. New investment is required. Our business employees need affordable places to live. Downtown needs to have more daytime office workers to support the shops. And we need our local economy to expand to make sure that we continue to thrive as a community. Sechelt should foster a climate that supports new investment from outside as well, and more on that later. It's one of our recommendations that I'm going to speak later. We also need reinvestment from within our community. Business owners and property owners need encouragement to keep improving their facilities to create a better customer experience, to attract more people to downtown and their shops, etc. And finally, there's something magical about a task force. You give a small group of staff or volunteers a clear task, a fixed target date. You urge them to explore practical solutions. And when they've reported back with an action plan, you don't allow them to become a forever committee. You disband the task force and thank them for that. And we have a recommendation for one task force coming up. We shared our draft strategic plan with you a few months ago, and then our final plan. I won't go over it, but I'd be happy to answer questions. We have an ambitious series of goals, and you can't read on this chart, but it was issued with the agenda. I'm just going to focus on 4 clear requests, and that is, the first one is we would ask local governments, and we're going to be asking the other 2 local governments to help us connect with new and existing business owners and to attach a chamber's e-brochure or a link with business license applications and business license renewal. Adding an opt-in or opt-out button on your website where the application forms are filled in to share your contact with, ask applicants whether they wish to share their contact with the Sunshine Coast Chamber. That's very simple, I think, as an ask. The next one is Growth Zone. This is something that we inherited from Scredo. It is a valuable business database that we would like to continue maintaining, and that database was funded by local governments previously. So we're going to be making the same request to Town of Gibsons and SCRD, and I think there is an existing formula that will allow you to participate in that. We've also inherited the Business Awards and Keep It Coastal. We're continuing these programs, and we have a goal in 2025 for economic development to host and invest in the Sunshine Coast Forum. What we would like to invite Sechelt to do is to participate, hopefully by appointing a council member and a staff member to participate in a preliminary planning session to explore what this idea would look like, to decide how the region would prepare for it at the local government level, as well as in the business sector, identify investment attraction initiatives, and help us make this forum a success. I've been part of this in the past. Local governments as part of this initiative in other communities. I've identified how they would invest in themselves, because when you invite investors, they want to make sure that they're part of a community that is going to be growing and improving as opposed to a community that's deteriorating. So that would all be part of this planning session, and then leading to a forum sometime in 2025. And finally, we'd like to work with you to encourage Sunshine Coast collaboration. We would invite you to set up with your colleagues in Gibsons and SCRD, set up a collaboration task force. We have a couple of people who are willing to voluntarily participate as facilitators, and the goal would be to identify ways to save money by collaborating. to come up with harmonized initiatives that are jointly held, perhaps with shared staff resources, eliminate duplications and triplications of effort. I'll highlight two lost opportunities that I think people can connect with because they're recent. The Sunshine Coast Housing Needs Report, the first one was written in 2020 for the entire Sunshine Coast. It was rewritten and updated in 2023. I've been part for 4 years of the Housing Action Table, and we were involved in that. There's a number of volunteers and there was government support for the update, a single report in 2023 for the Sunshine Coast. And now we have 3 different reports, 3 different housing needs reports for each community, written by 2 separate consultants. You elected to choose Urban Matters, the same as Gibson's, but somehow SCRD had their report written by KPMG, probably rather expensive consulting firm. The BC guidelines encouraged, right in the document from the BC government, encouraged collaboration among neighboring communities as well as participation of a regional district to bring people together within the regional district. So obviously there's an opportunity to save money there. The second example is the small-scale multi-unit housing. The government issued directives to all the communities at the same time. Everybody was given the same target date. And the fact that staff were busy doing this was used as an excuse for the fact that some of the work of the planning staff was not advancing because this took priority. I think there was an opportunity to work together and end up with a single document that would be the same for all 3 communities. So the business community is looking for ways to assist, if possible, in saving money, making sure that taxes are utilized as efficiently as possible. In closing, we would like to thank our liaison members, particularly Councillor Shepherd, representing your council. And I'd be happy to take your questions. For the business owners who are listening right now, we encourage you to become members of the Sunshine Coast Chamber of Commerce. We're here to represent you and to lobby for efficient use of your taxes. So thank you. I'd like to answer your question. Do you have any?
Sure. Committee, if we have any questions? Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you through the chair. There's no privacy issue. I guess this is a question to staff of making this inquiry through the business license process. I guess that's my first question. The second question is, I'm assuming that it's technically rather easy just to put in an opt-in box or opt-out. Thank you.
Were those questions for you then, or did you do?
Well,
Yeah,
from our perspective, we think there would be a privacy issue if we were to get a list issued to us by communities. And typically that would be something that would be time consuming to go and ask all the business members if they are willing to share that information on that list and then culling the list. So having something that only starts with the renewals of licenses and new applications would be easy, because then the screening of the privacy, do I want my information to go to the chamber or not? That's something that would be chosen by the applicant.
Okay.
It should be easy.
Okay, so Councillor Shepherd, that was also directed through to staff to see how that can be done, how easy it is to be done. Okay, great. I'm not sure who can answer that with staff, perhaps the administrator?
We can look into it, but no, we can't give out the list as a straight document, no. There is privacy concerns with that.
So it.
So we'll look
has-
into the other part of it and see what we can do.
So if they say yes, that would be.
Then we can look into it.
That
yeah.
would
Yeah.
be something you're going to look into. Okay, good. And I think that's what you were doing.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
asking for the list.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so it makes sense that you want a box check so they can release it on their own
Mhm.
cognizance. Okay, any other questions of the two here? Yes?
Thank you, Chair. Like to get a little more information on the forum that you're proposing, being proposed. You know, putting this together is a lot of work. So would that be done, you're looking for support from our staff as well as the chamber staff? Or how do you see between here and actually holding the event?
What we're asking for right now is participating in one planning committee or one planning meeting so that we size up what the scale of the event is going to be and what the participation is going to look like. And then we would, the chamber would play a lead role in organizing that event and find the resources to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from committee? Councillor Bell?
So thank you. Through the chair, a question around the forum, also recognizing that these are a lot of work. Do you have some examples of benchmark communities that have done these kind of forums and they have been successful and have data that supports that?
Yeah, there's many examples that I can provide, and we would bring some of the timetables, the event timetable in terms of preparation, and then the event itself and the follow-up. We would bring that to the first coordination meeting with the various communities to see if there's an interest in participating. There's different scales of event. I was earlier this week at an event that was focused on development by one community, but it should be broader than that. So as a first event for this community, it likely would seek to attract not just, what can be top of mind to people is developer investment is not just developer. It can be a variety of things, cultural enterprises, etc. So I think it's hard to lay out exactly what this is going to look like when we want the program itself to be created in a collaborative way, not just ourselves, the chamber, but Sunshine Coast Tourism and the local communities participating in the planning.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Councillor Shepherd has got.
Councillor Shepherd?
Thanks. Just a quick question about growth zone. So that's a database of businesses all across the coast, I think, that Scredo assembled. So would the chamber buy that from Scredo? That information? Thanks.
No, we already own it. It was passed on to us. The three chambers were members, as well as the Scredo database. All of that is in one tool. And but what we didn't plan on is the cost of managing that software. And we are looking at covering our costs for this year and next year, as well as we're looking at finding other solutions. So we've got two people, two directors who are investigating sources that may be an alternative that would allow us to retain the database, but pay less in annual fees to maintain it. We're taking a very business approach to this.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Any other questions from committee? The forum idea, I really like it. It engages and it encourages creativity, so. It sounds like two of us are interested at this table so far. I'm sure we all
Yeah.
are. So I look forward to more information. Eitan, you had a number of asks in your presentation. And four. And just to go through this, are the asks clear to us in the documents you provided, or did you just want to quickly retrace them to be in the minutes? As 4 asks.
I can provide a written document afterwards if you wish, but they are on the slides.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just so really clear to us then what you're asking for, because there's 4.
Mhm.
It's not just one like the last group, so it's just to be really clear what you are
Yeah.
hoping we can help you with.
Mhm.
So it's really clear. Okay, great. I'm assuming staff will look at that and that will maybe come up later. I'm not sure how to proceed with these requests, much like the housing one. And where do we go from here, right? Committee?
Thank you for the presentation. The $6,500 a year, is that from each of the 3 governments? Or
No.
is that, so,
To be shared. Yeah.
okay, so are you looking for a share of that? From the
Yes.
district of Sechelt?
Correct.
I have no issues with a counselor being involved in a planning session to sort of flesh out what a forum might look like. I'm really cautious right now. I feel like every time we turn around, we're asking staff to get involved in something else, but so that's where I am on that. I think with budget coming up, we can look at the ask within that, perhaps.
Are you make a motion?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that that we look at providing the chamber a portion of what is required to maintain the growth zone software for the next year during budget
Okay,
allocation.
great. Anybody want to second that? Okay, Counselor, okay, we'll go with Counselor Bell. We'll get a fast hand, so quick on the draw. So Counselor Bell, just to mention though, the District of Sechelt did fund a BDC a number of years ago. Separate from the chamber, we actually funded one. So business information. I'm trying to remember what it was called, Business Information Center or something like that. It was going to the chamber. It's been so long now, but we did fund some external to the chamber activities for a few $1,000s a year. We used to do things like that.
Mhm.
So we have worked with the chamber on some econ/business issues. Okay, we have a motion in front of us, committee. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. And is that all you require then, other than the slide you're leaving behind?
Well, I'd like to add something I
Sure.
forgot to mention about the forum, the why of the forum. I did talk about the fact that we need investment, but really when you look at the way Sechelt has grown, there's been huge investments in the past. The Clayton Mall came out of the ground at one point. Before that, there were mom and pop shops, but that didn't exist. There's buildings like the Watermark that were a very significant investment. But in the past decade, the biggest investment was the House of Clans. You know, I'm racking my brain to try to find something equivalent to that. The TELUS building is coming out of the ground, but it's half the size in terms of square footage of the House of Clans. So the economic impact of a building like this, of that kind of investment, in terms of pulling people off the street, but also the fact that they have retail at grade and retail is already occupied, the economic impact of all the construction, but also the ongoing maintenance. I think that kind of investment is what needs to be attracted, and not just housing, but also cultural amenities and all kinds of things that we need to talk about. So that's the why, to make the community achieve its future, its goals, and to thrive.
That's coming up in a few months.
The planning would be this fall, I would hope,
Yeah.
and the forum itself perhaps next fall. This is not something you snap your fingers and make it happen. I think it needs to be planned very carefully and have an impact and make sure that you get good attendance by people with money in their pocket who love the Sunshine Coast.
And in your bank account. Okay, any other questions of the two presenters here? Ed, thanks for coming and saying a lot there, yeah. Thanks for coming, the two of you. Okay, I guess we have the next item on the agenda, 5.1, District of Sechelt 2024 third quarter report, presented to us by staff. Thank you to staff for presenting that. Okay, and so did staff want to speak to this at all, or?
No, Jared, it's just for information.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so obviously committee council has read the document. Once again, thank you to staff for presenting this. Any questions? Councilor Shepherd?
Just a quick question on the housing, the second take-up of the Housing Accelerator Fund. I'm just wondering if there's an idea on when we would get a response on that. A second point, I really have to commend Public Works for the work that they're doing in the weekly cleanup at the unhoused sort of community site. It's just been such a help there that I've just been so impressed with their contribution to that effort and really wanted to highlight it. So just those two items, thanks.
Thanks, Councilor Shepherd. Say the first one again. I was focused on the
Housing Accelerator Fund.
Accelerator. So it's through to Director Allen, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, no word yet since our application was put in. Prior to application, it was indicated that we can expect a response before the end of this year. That said, last time we were expecting a response in November and received it on the last day of February. So they assured they'd be more expedient this time because it's a smaller pool, but nonetheless hopeful, but not certain.
Okay, thanks. Hopefully by the end of the year then. Yeah, and I got caught there because I was thinking of UBCM and Smithers, how much money they've been spending on. I think it was Smithers that we all heard, a number of us that went to those schools, about how much money they're spending on housing the unhoused and all the issues that are associated with it, how much it costs the municipality. So, Councilor Shepherd?
Oh, sorry, just one follow-up question, perhaps through the chair to engineering, the septic master plan. I'm just wondering how that's coming along.
Yes, thank you for the question and through the chair. The plan has had a scope revision partway through, so we're just working on the final scope agreement to complete the plan. I don't have an ETA on the completion, but it is ongoing. Thank you.
Okay, did that help, Councilor Shepherd?
Yeah, I'm interested in sort of hearing the timeline when it's ready. Just because that's going to be a significant amount of money, and obviously we've got to prepare for that.
Okay. Did you want to speak to that? You put your mic back on.
Oh, yeah, I can just add that when the plan has been completed, we will share the outcome.
Thank you. Any other questions of the report presented to us by staff of the committee asking the questions? Councilor Rowe.
Just in relation to the legacy fund sort of policy revision, have we heard back from the community forest on their feedback?
No, we have not.
No? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm certainly waiting. I don't know what the next moves are for council. Was that the determining factor for whether we get a report back with them? I mean, it's in our bank account. So was that what the understanding amongst council members was, is that we were waiting for them? Okay.
I mean, generally, I would think they would get back to us because this has been such a hot topic around their board. So I'm kind of surprised that
Yeah.
they haven't gotten back to us. So,
For Douglas?
I will chase them down and talk to them.
This is really important to them. They asked for input and then now you got to chase them down. A little bit confusing. Okay, any other and if counselors know anything, what's going on there, it'd be great for the rest of us to know. I'm really confused by that. Any other questions on the report presented to us?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure.
Same thing with wastewater and engineering, and I appreciate our director is new in the role. But the bottom of Mason Road, and how do we get large rocks into sanitary sewer lines?
Yes, thank you for that question through the chair. They can get into the line in a number of ways. Sometimes it's to do with this in the sewer connection on someone's property, for example. They could open the IC or kids open an IC and drop a rock in it. You know, that happens occasionally. Construction connections to the line during the construction process. Sometimes contamination, rocks and debris can get in there. Exactly. And anytime that the manhole lids are open as well. Not that anyone should be opening a manhole lid, but occasionally that happens and debris can get in that way as well.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's
Thank you.
disappointing if it's malicious or vandalism or whatever you'd call it. But the other one, since it came up with some neighbors, have we been in compliance with the Water Resource Center on our operating specs? Because I know had some complaints about odors a few weeks ago that certainly were addressed by staff, but are we operating in compliance?
I don't have, we're continually reporting our compliance to the regulator. I don't have the immediate numbers if we were out at all in terms of our, sedimentation or the TSS or BOD. However, the odor is a separate issue from our compliance, and that was due to some maintenance issues with the odor control component of the facility. So the odor is actually unrelated to being in compliance, and that's been rectified. Thanks.
Thank you I quite agree. If I may, Chair, different topic. I'm curious about our FOIs and what would be an average time period to respond. Like we get whatever number we get, are we able to respond in 10 days, 30 days, 100 days?
The legislation requires that responses are sent within 30 days. There is an option to extend that 30-day period by an additional 30 days as well, but all of our responses have been sent well within the time frame for the timings that we've reported in this for the third quarter.
Okay, maybe I missed that. So the timing is in this report?
I was simply referring to the third quarter of 2024. All responses have been sent within the 30-day period, generally well within it.
Great, thank you. That's great.
Any other questions? Okay. Any other questions from committee? Okay, let's then move on to thank staff and committee for those questions on the third quarter report. Let's move on to 6.1 District of Sechelt 2024 Audit Services Plan for information. So we have the information presented to us. Did you want to speak to any of that or no? Okay. Okay, so it's presented for information. I don't see any questions and nobody's speaking to it. So did everyone want to move on to 6.2?
I'll move to receive
Sure.
the audit service plan.
Sure. Yeah. Second, thank you. All in favor of reception? Thank you. Okay, great. So now everyone's comfortable with moving forward to 6.2 then. Audit engagement letter.
That's for information.
You want to receive it for information again? Did you want to make that motion?
Don't know that we need to, but sure. Why not?
Okay.
Let's receive it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks. All in favor of receiving it for information? Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, seeing none on both those items, I guess we will move to adjournment. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Seconder, Counselor Shepherd, click off mark. Okay, all in favor of adjournment? Thank you. Okay, great. Thanks everyone for coming.